has ever known is about to be unleashed.
Not these guys again!
Arnold, Vosloo, Oded, Fehr, Patricia Velasquez. The Mummy returns.
The curse was never truly buried, and now an ancient evil has returned stronger than ever. Welcome back to Cinema Reviews. Today we uncover the action, mystery, and supernatural chaos of The Mummy Returns 2001, where lost kingdoms rise, destiny awakens, and survival becomes a race against darkness. Get ready because some legends should never be disturbed. The Mummy Returns is a 2001 American fantasy action adventure film written and directed by Stephen Sommers. It serves as a sequel to the 1999 film The Mummy and is the second installment in the Mummy film series. Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, Arnold Vosloo, Oded Fehr, and Patricia Velasquez reprised their role from the previous movie, while Dwayne Johnson, credited under his wrestling name, The Rock, makes his feature film acting debut. The film was released on May 4, 2001 by Universal Pictures. Like the original film, The Mummy Returns achieved major commercial success, earning $436 million worldwide. It became the seventh highest grossing film of 2001 and remains the highest grossing entry in the franchise. Although the movie received mixed reviews from critics, it was allowed by the 2002 prequel The Scorpion King and the 2008 sequel The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. In 3067 BC, a warrior known as the Scorpion King leads a massive army in an attempt to conquer the world. After suffering defeat, he is banished to the harsh desert of Aham. As death approaches, the king offers his soul to the Anubis in exchange for the power to destroy his enemies. Anubis accepts the bargain, creating a hidden oasis and a golden pyramid while granting him an army of terrifying jackal like warriors. Once Egypt is conquered, however, Anubis claims the king's soul and sends the army back to the underworld. In 1933, after 7 years of Imhotep's defeat, Rick O'Connell and his wife Evelyn explore ancient ruins with their son Alex and discover the bracelet of Anubis. Back in London, Alex accidentally activates the bracelet, which locks onto his wrist and reveals the vision leading to Ahmsir. Soon after, Evelyn is abducted by a mysterious cult that restricts Imhotep using the Book of the Dead, hoping to use his power to overthrow the Scorpion King and command Anubis' army. The cult is led by the museum curator Bartus Hafiz, assisted by the deadly Lok Nah and Mila Nice, who is the reincarnation of Imhotep's lost love. And soon Namon, Rick and Alex begin a dangerous rescue mission alongside Jonathan, who possesses a mysterious golden scepter, and Ardeth Day, leader of the Magi. Rick rescues Evelyn before she can be sacrificed, but during the chaos, Alex is captured and forced to guide the cult using the bracelet's vision. As the cult journeys toward the Ahmsir, Alex secretly leaves clues behind for his parents, who pursued them abroad, are dirigible with Rick's old friend Izzy. Meanwhile, Imhotep restores Anxunamon's soul into Mila's body, unintentionally awaking Evelyn's memories of her past life as a princess Nefertiti, protector of the bracelet. Near the oasis, Imhotep attacks the pursuing dirigible with his supernatural powers, causing it to crash into the jungle. Izzy stays behind to repair the airship while the other presses forward. Deep within the jungle, the O'Connells and the Clut are attacked by vicious pygmy mummies. Rick rescues Alex while Ardeth defeats Lokna. Most of the Clut members are slaughtered during the attack, leaving only Hafiz, Imhotep, and Anaksu Namon alive. Rick and Alex race to reach the pyramid before sunrise, successfully freeing Alex from the bracelet's curse. Soon after, Anxunamun, Imhotep, and Hafiz arrive at the murder Evelyn before entering the pyramid. Inside, Imhotep loses his magical powers and must confront the Scorpion King as a mortal man. Hafiz activates the bracelet, summoning Anubis' undead army across the desert. Outside, Ardeth and Magi wage war against the monstrous forces while Rick battles both Imhotep and the transformed Scorpion King, now a gigantic scorpion like creature. At the same time, Jonathan and Alex recover the Book of Dead from Anxunamun and uses it to resurrect Evelyn. Rick discovers that Jonathan's captor is actually the legendary Spear of Orisis, the only weapon capable of defeating the Scorpion King. With Jonathan's help, Rick seizes the spear and kills the monster, banishing both him and Anubis' army back to the underworld. As the oasis collapses and the pyramid crumbles, Rick and Imhotep cling to the edge of a pit leading into the underworld. Evelyn risks her life to save Rick, while Anxunamun abandons Imhotep despite his desperate pleas. Devastated by betrayal, Imhotep lets go and falls into the abyss. During the escape, Anxunamun falls into a pit filled with deadly scorpions and is consumed alive. Just as the oasis is destroyed, Izzy returns with the repaired dirigible and rescues the O'Connells. Jonathan manages to grab the priceless diamond before they escape into the sunset, while Ardeth watches proudly before riding away on his horse. The Mummy Returns 2001, a comprehensive deep dive into its iconic cast, the complete analysis of every actor, character, and casting decision that shaped a blockbuster era. Introduction: the making of a blockbuster ensemble. When The Mummy Returns thundered into cinemas on May 4, 2001, it did not arrive quietly. The sequel to the beloved 1999 adventure film, The Mummy, opened with a $68.1 million in its first weekend, making it the second highest opening weekend in the film history at that time, surpassed only by The Lost World Jurassic Park. By the end of its theatrical run, it had earned more than $435 million worldwide, cementing its position as the seventh highest grossing film of 2001 and the highest grossing entry in the Mummy franchise as a whole. But behind those staggering financial figures lay a rich tapestry of human performances, casting stories, physical transformations, and career defining moments that deserves exploration in their own right. The Mummy Returns was written and directed by Stephen Sommers, who had shepherded the film to success and immediately began envisioning a grander, louder, and more emotionally layered follow up. His vision demanded a cast that could handle the thunderous action sequence, light hearted banter, genuine emotional scares, and the sheer physical demand of any adventure epic. Fortunately, he had one of the most charming ensemble casts of any blockbuster of early 2000s already in place, and he added to it with inspired new additions who would go on to change the film industry landscape entirely. This video is a deep and comprehensive examination of the casting of The Mummy Returns, who was in it, who they played, how they got there, and what they brought to their roles, and what their involvement in the film meant for their career and for cinema more broadly. From the return of beloved characters to the historic debut of a future global superstar, The Mummy Returns represents one of the most fascinating ensemble casting stories of the blockbuster era. Brendan Fraser as Rick O'Connell, the heart of franchise. Background and career before the role. Brandon James Fraser was born on December 3, 1968 in the Indianapolis, Indiana. He is an American Canadian actor who spent much of his early childhood moving between multiple countries and cities due to his father's work as a tourism official and the Canadian government. Fraser attended Cornish College of Arts in Seattle, Washington, which nurtured his performance instinct and prepared him for the physical and comedic demands that would come to define his screen persona. Fraser's breakthrough into Hollywood came with the 1992 comedy Man, in which he played the thought out caveman navigating the modern world. He followed this with School Ties 1992, a more dramatic turn that showed his range with Honors 1994, but it was his starring role in the family comedy George of the Jungle 1997 the most directly led to his casting in The Mummy. Producer James Jack had initially offered the role of Rick O'Connell to a roster of A-list actors including Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck, all of whom were either unavailable or uninterested. When Jack and director Stephen Sommers observed the box office performance of George of the Jungle and the natural, easy swagger Fraser brought to physical, comedic adventure material, they knew they had found their man. Somers also noted that Fraser perfectly embodied the Errol Flynn style swashbuckling hero he had always imagined for the character of Rick O'Connell. Rick O'Connell, the character. Rick O'Connell is, at his core, a man of action with the heart of gold. In the world of the mummy, he is a former soldier who served with the French Foreign League before becoming an adventurer and treasure hunter. Between the events of the 1999 original film and The Mummy Returns, Rick has married the brilliant Egyptologist Evelyn Carnahan, settled in a handsome London estate, and became the father of an 8-year-old son named Alex. He has transformed from a reckless, self interested soldier of fortune into a devoted husband and protective father. Yet, his capacity for adventure and battle remain entirely intact. The character of Rick O'Connell occupies a specific niche in action adventure cinema that was rarer than it might seem. He is neither a brooding loner nor an invulnerable superhero. He gets hurt, he makes wisecracks at wildly inappropriate moments. He loves his family with complete and unironic earnestness. He is the kind of man who clearly enjoys fighting mummies and other supernatural horrors as much as he fears for the people he loves. Fraser understood this delicate balance implicitly, and the scenes in which Rick interacts with his son Alec, teasing him, worrying about him, fighting alongside him, carry a warmth that elevates the film beyond its spectacular action sequences. In The Mummy Returns, Rick also discovers a secret dimension of his identity that he is a descendant from the ancient Magi, a warrior caste devoted to protecting humanity from supernatural threats. This revelation, delivered by Ardeth Bay, Oded Fehr, upon recognizing the tattoo on Rick's wrist, adds a mythic dimension to the character. Rick himself responds to this news with characteristic humor. I'm sorry, you have got the wrong guy. But the revelation nevertheless grounds him within a larger cosmic narrative. Fraser's performance and physical commitment. The physical demand placed on Fraser during the production of The Mummy Returns were extraordinary. The film is packed with sustained action sequences from battles in London Museum to high-speed chases across the Egyptian desert to frantic close quarter fighting within ancient temples. Fraser underwent significant physical training to make these sequences believable and by the multiple accounts pushed his body to his limits. In later years, Fraser would acknowledge that the cumulative toll of performing his own stunt across the Mummy franchise contributed a serious physical health problems, including spine injuries that required surgery. Despite these costs, Fraser's commitment to the role is evident in every frame. He brings an infectious physical energy to Rick O'Connell that makes the character's ability to survive absurd danger feel plausible. The comedy is never forced, the emotion is always honest, and the action always feels grounded in character rather than spectacle alone. When Evelyn is killed by Anuk-Su-Namon partway through the film, and Rick must choose between saving himself and fighting to resurrect her. Fraser plays the scene with a raw desperation that briefly transforms the movie into something closer to tragedy. Career legacy. The Mummy Returns was the peak of Fraser's blockbuster commercial success. He had previously starred in the first Mummy film and would return once more for The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor in 2008. But the third film, while still profitable, was considered a critical disappointment and marked an effective end to the franchise's original run. Fraser's career underwent a prolonged and difficult period in the years that followed, shaped by the physical health issue, personal turmoil, and the revelation in the 2018 that he had been sexually assaulted at a Hollywood Foreign Press Association function in 2003. His extraordinary comeback culminated in his Academy Award winning performance in The Whale 2022, a triumph that prompted widespread celebration across the film community. As of 2026, Fraser is in development on a fourth mummy film with Rachel Weisz, confirming that Rick O'Connell remains his most beloved and iconic role. Rachel Weisz as Evelyn O'Connell, Princess Nefertiti, Intelligence and Grace. Background and career before the role. Rachel Hannah Weisz was born on March 7, 1970 in London, England, to an Austrian psychoanalyst mother and Hungarian inventor father. She attended St. Paul's Girls' School in London and later studied English literature at Trinity Hall, Cambridge, where she co founded the theatrical company called Talking Tongues. Her early film career included a debut in 1994 horror film Death Machine and critical attention for her role in Bernardo Bertolucci's Stealing Beauty, 1996. She won a Critics Circle Theatre Award for her performance in 1994 revival of Noel Coward's Design for Living. Director Stephen Sommers saw Woods in 1998 film The Land Girls and immediately cast her as Evelyn Carnahan in the original Mummy. It was, as Woods herself acknowledged in interviews, not the type of film she had imagined herself in. She described it as a comic book world, not a genre she was naturally drawn to, but she recognized the commercial opportunity it presented and ultimately found Evelyn a character of genuine substance beneath the adventure movie trapping. Her portrayal made Evelyn one of the most beloved heroines of the era, a woman whose intelligence and bookishness were coded as strength rather than liabilities. Evelyn O'Connell, Princess Nefertiti, the character. By the time of The Mummy Returns, Evelyn Carnahan has become Evelyn O'Connell, wife and mother. The sequel gives her a significantly expanded role compared to the original film. In the 1999 movie, Evelyn is primarily the Egyptologist who accidentally awakens Imhotep and must rely on Rick's fighting skills to survive the supernatural catastrophe that follows. In The Mummy Return, she remains just as intellectually formidable, but she is now also a warrior. The film reveals that Evelyn is the reincarnation of the ancient Egyptian princess Nefertiti, daughter of Pharaoh Seti I and the keeper of the legendary bracelet of Anubis. As Evelyn begins to assess memories from her previous life, she undergoes a dramatic transformation, moving from the bookish scholar of the first film to a fully capable combatant. The flashback sequences showing Nefertiti sparring against Anck-su-namun in the palace of City 1 are some of the most visually striking scenes in the film, and they require words to portray a version of herself that is fundamentally more physically aggressive and confident than the Evelyn audiences had come to know. The film's emotional climax, in which Evelyn is killed by Anck-su-namun and subsequently restructured by her son and brother using the Book of Death, places her at the center of a narrative about sacrifice and love that gives the film surprisingly emotion weight for what is ostensibly a summer blockbuster. Evelyn's choice to risk her life to save Rick from the crumbling pyramid, mirroring and contrasting with Anck-su-namun's choice to abandon Imhotep, is the moral heartbeat of the film. Physical training and preparation. To prepare for the expanded action sequences in The Mummy Returns, Watts and fellow cast member Patricia Velasquez trained extensively in ancient Japanese martial arts. This training was specifically designed to help them perform the elaborated choreographed fight sequences that the script demanded, particularly the extended flashback sequence in which Nefertiti and Anck-su-namun duel with the Sai in the chambers of Pharaoh's palace. By all the accounts, both actresses threw themselves into this training with genuine commitment. and the results are evident on screen. The fight sequence feels authentic and athletic in a way that would have been impossible without serious physical preparation. The fight scene between Weisz and Velasquez in the London Museum, in which Evelyn discovers her warrior instinct while combating Anaxunamon's resurrected form, was one of the film's most celebrated sequences. The fact that the both actresses performed much of it themselves in period costumes under hot studio lights speak to the physical dedication they brought to the production. Career legacy. The Mummy Returns was, by a considerable margin, the highest grossing film Weisz had appeared in at that point in her career. Its worldwide gross over 435 million dwarfed the original film's already impressive $260 million and confirmed Weisz as one of the most commercially viable actresses working in Hollywood. She used this performance wisely, selecting a diverse array of subsequent projects that demonstrated her range and prevented her from being pigeonholed as an action adventure actress. Her performance in The Constant Gardener 2005 won her an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, proving definitely her talents extended far beyond blockbuster entertainment. She declined to return for The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor in 2008, citing disagreements over the script's handling of her character. The fourth Mummy film, currently in development with Weisz and Fraser, will mark her long awaited return to the role. John Hannah as Jonathan Carnahan, the soul of comedy. Background and career. John Hannah was born on April 23, 1962, in East Kilbride, South Lanarkshire, Scotland. He trained at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama that built strong theatrical and television career before his breakthrough role in Mike Newell's acclaimed comedy Four Weddings and a Funeral 1994, in which he delivered a moving eulogy at the funeral of his friend, a performance that introduced him to international audiences and demonstrated his ability to combine humor with genuine pathos. Hannah was cast as Jonathan Carnahan, Evelyn's older brother, in the original 1999 Mummy. The character was conceived as the film's primary comic relief, a lovable, roused, self interested, and occasionally cowardly, but ultimately loyal when it counts. Hannah's sinister warmth and impassable comic timing made Jonathan one of the original film's most beloved characters, and it was natural that Sommer would want to expand his role in the sequel. Jonathan Carnahan, the character in The Mummy Returns. Jonathan Carnahan occupies a specific and important function in The Mummy Returns. He is the film's emotional and comedic pressure valve. When the tension of the narrative becomes too intense, Jonathan provides the necessary release. When the plot becomes too earnest, Jonathan is there to undercut it with a perfectly placed quip or a revealing flash of cold eyes. But Hannah played the character with such genuine affection that Jonathan never feels like a mere court jester. There is always the sense that beneath the bluster and half interest lies a man who would genuinely die for his family. If only the alternative were not quite so agreeable. In The Mummy Returns, Jonathan's most significant contribution to the plot comes when he stumbles upon the golden scepter that turns out to be spear of Orisis, the only weapon capable of killing the Scorpion King. His accidental discovery and subsequent heroism in helping Rick wield the spear against the monster in the film's way of honoring a character who has always operated on the periphery of the greatness without ever quite being the hero of his own story. Jonathan's final scene, pocketing a massive diamond as the oasis collapsed around him, is a perfect encapsulation of the character, simultaneously self serving and lovable. John Hannah would go on to reprise the role of Jonathan Carnahan in The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor 2008, one of the only two cast members from the original ensemble, along with Brendan Fraser, to return for the third installment. He reportedly also appears in the fourth film currently in development. Arnold Vosloo as Imhotep, the terrifying mummy, background and career. Arnold Vosloo was born on September 16, 1962, in Oudtshoorn, South Africa. He began his acting career in South African theatre and television before transitioning to Hollywood, where he appeared in the films including Hard Target 1993 and Darkman 2, The Return of Durant 1995. His casting as Imhotep in the original 1999 Mummy was something of a gamble. The role required him to convey menace and pathos simultaneously, often through elaborate prosthetic makeup that obscured much of his face and demanded a physicality that went beyond conventional villainy. Woslow's performance in the original film was widely praised. He created a villain who was genuinely frightening but also crucially sympathetic. Imhotep's evil stems entirely from love. His centuries long obsession with the murdered Anuk-Su-Namun drives him to commit artocides, but the audiences understand even while condemning the passion that motivates him. This moral complexity, rare in blockbuster villains, made Imhotep one of the most memorable antagonists of 1999 90s cinema. Imhotep in The Mummy Returns. In The Mummy Returns, Imhotep is resurrected once again by an Egyptian cult led by Beltus Hafiz, who hopes to use the ancient priest power to defeat the Scorpion King and claims command of Anub's army. The character's role in this sequel is both familiar and subtly different from the original. He remains the primary supernatural antagonist, but the film introduces a new dynamic by placing him in contemplation with the even more powerful supernatural force, the Scorpion King himself. Vosloo noted in interviews that filming The Mummy Return presented unusual creative challenges, particularly because the increased use of CGI in the sequel meant that he often spent extended period acting, casting against empty space, reacting to creatures and environments that would only be added in post production. The dedication required to deliver a convincing performance under these circumstances, without the benefit of a physical scene partner to react to demand a particular kind of imaginative concentration that Vosloo brought to every take. The film's most emotionally resonant moment involving Imhotep comes to at the climax, when he reaches out to Anuk-Su-Namun for help as he hangs above the underworld, and she runs. Her abandonment of him in his moment of ultimate need is devastating, not just because it condemns him to death, but because it retroactively calls into the questions the sincerity of everything that motivated his centuries of evil. Was it really love? Or was he the only one who loved? Vosloo plays the moment with heartbreaking clarity. Imhotep releases the ledge and falls, and the audience grieves for a monster. Oded Fehr as Ardeth Day, the noble Magi warrior. Background and career. Oded Fehr was born on November 23, 1970 in Tel Aviv, Israel. He served in the Israel Defense Forces as a customary for Israeli citizen before pursuing a career in acting. He studied at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School in the United Kingdom and worked in British television before his casting in The Mummy brought him to global attention. Fehr's casting as Ardeth Bey, the Medjol warrior who serves as an unlikely guide and protector to the O'Connell's family, was one of the surest decisions Sommer made in assembling the film's ensemble. Ardeth Bey begins the 1999 film as an apparent antagonist mysterious, severe, and seemingly dangerous, before revealing himself to be one of the heroes. The character embodies a particular archetype, the warrior whose discipline and gravity provide a counterweight to the chaos and comedy that surrounds him. Fehr's naturally imposing physical presence and his ability to project both warmth and menace depending upon the scene's requirement made him perfect for the role. Ardeth Bey in The Mummy Returns. Ardeth Bey's role in The Mummy Returns is expanded significantly from his appearances in the first film. He returns as a full member of the ensemble, fighting alongside the O'Connells from the museum battle in the London to the climatic assault on the oasis of Amshire. He also serves as the character who delivers the revelation that Rick O'Connell is himself of Magi descent, a scene that plays beautifully on the relationship of surprised equals rather than expert and novice that had defined their earlier interaction. One of the film's most impressive set pieces, in which Ardeth Bay leads the assembled Magi warriors in the battle against the army of Anubis on the sand outside the pyramid, is a visual spectacle that would have been impossible to achieve without Fair's physical authority. He commands the screen even with wide shorts, his tattoo covered face conveying both the weight of his scared duty and the genuine ferocity of a man who had trained his entire life for this exact moment. Following The Mummy Returns, Fair went on to roles in Resident Evil Apocalypse 2004 and various television projects, maintaining an active career in genre entertainment. Patricia Velasquez as Mila Nice, Anaxunamon, from cameo to co-star. Background and career. Patricia Velasquez was born on January 31, 1971 in Maracaibo, Venezuela. She began her career as a model, becoming one of the first Latina models to appear on the cover of major international fashion magazines. Her transition into acting was gradual, and her role as Anaxunamon in the original 1999 Mummy film was essentially an extended cameo, a flashback appearance in which Anaxunamon is killed by Pharaoh Seti I, setting in motion Imhotep's millennia long obsession and eventually his resurrection. Despite the brevity of her appearance in the original film, the Valenzuela left a powerful impression. Her physical beauty and the smoldering intensity she brought to the character, even in a role measured in minutes, convinced Somers and the producer that Anuk Sunamon was a character worth developing. When The Mummy Returns was being written, Velasquez was brought back not merely as a returning face but as a fully developed antagonist with her own arc, motivations, and moral reckoning. Mila Nice Anuk in The Mummy Returns. In The Mummy Returns, Velasquez plays a dual role. Mila Nice is the modern day reincarnation of Anuk-Sunamun, a member of the cult of Imhotep who engineered the mummy's resurrection specifically because she is physically the reborn vessel of her ancient love. As Imhotep's power grows and the ancient priestess's soul gradually overrides the modern woman's identity, Velasquez traces the transformation with careful attention to the physical and psychological shift from one identity to another. The character of Anaxunamon is defined by a fundamental moral ambiguity. She is presented throughout the film as Imhotep's equal and counterpart, a woman whose love for the ancient priest mirrors his obsession with her. The tragedy of their relationship, articulated most powerfully in the final moment when she abandons him to save herself, lies in the revelation that the love may never have been symmetrical. Imhotep sacrificed everything repeatedly for Anaxunemon. She ultimately saved herself when it mattered most. Velasquez trained extensively with Rachel Weisz in Japanese martial arts to prepare for the film's fight sequences. Particularly, she extended battle between Nefertiti and Anaxunamun that appears both in the ancient Egyptian prologue and in contemporary London museum setting. Her willingness to commit fully to the physical demands of these sequences, combined with her natural presence, made her one of the most memorable elements of the film. A critic noted that she had approximately 10 times more screen time in The Mummy Returns than in the original film, and the expansion was entirely justified. Freddy Boath as Alex O'Connell, the younger adventurer. Background and casting. Freddy Boath was a young British actor whose casting as Alex O'Connell, the 8-year-old son of Rick and Evelyn, was the result of a competitive audition process that involved one of the more remarkable choices points in early 2000s film history. Both was simultaneously auditioning for two major Hollywood productions, The Mummy Returns and the first Harry Potter film. He chose to pursue The Mummy Returns instead, a decision that placed him in the middle of one of the year's biggest blockbusters and eventually led to a performance that earned him a Saturn Award nomination for Best Young Actor. The character of Alex O'Connell is the key narrative engine of the film's second and third act. When Alex put on the bracelet of Anubis, an artifact that has locked onto his wrist and will kill him if he does not reach the oasis of Ahm's within a specific time limit, he becomes simultaneously the film's most vulnerable character and its most important one. He alone can interpret the bracelet's vision, leaving clues for his parents to follow as he is marched across the desert by the flood. Both plays the character with a quick intelligence and a defiant humor that recalls both parents. He is clearly his father's son in his refusal to be intimidated and his mother's son in his intellectual curiosity. The scenes between Boath and his kidnapper Lokna at will are some of the film's most quietly effective moments. Alexis' combination of genuine fear and stubborn defiance contrasted with Lochna's brutal professionalism and grudging respect creates a dynamic more interesting than simple captor and captive. Both holds his own entirely against the imposing Agabage, and the film is stronger for it. Following The Mummy Returns, Both stepped back significantly from the acting. His next notable credit would come many years later, but his performance in this film remains a genuinely impressive piece of child acting within the blockbuster tradition. Dwayne The Rock Johnson as the Scorpion King. A Star is Born. Background and the decision to cast a wrestler. The casting of Dwayne Johnson, then universally known as The Rock, his ring name in the World Wrestling Federation, as the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns, represent one of the most consequential casting decisions in modern blockbuster cinema. Johnson had not appeared in any feature film before this role. He was, at the time, one of the most popular professional wrestlers in the world, a charismatic physical specimen whose in ring performances demonstrated extraordinary showmanship and natural magnetism, but whose film acting credentials were essentially non existent. Stephen Sommer recognized something in Johnson that went beyond the wrestler's athletic credentials. He saw natural screen presence, an innate ability to fill the frame with personality, and a physical authority that was essentially impossible to fabricate. The role of Scorpion King, an ancient warrior of fearsome reputation who made a pact with the god and wished to ultimate power, required someone who could project world historical nuance in a relatively brief screen appearance. Sommer believed Johnson could do it, despite his lack of acting experience, and he was correct. The Scorpion King, the character. The Scorpion King, full name Matthias of Akkad, is introduced in a prolonged set in 3067 BC. He is a warrior who has led his army to near conquest of the known world, only to be defeated and exiled to the desert of Ahamsir, where he is left to die. Facing death, he makes a deal with the god Angus, his soul in exchange for the power to destroy his enemies. Anubis grants the wish, and the Scorpion King, given command of an army of a jackal-like supernatural warriors, completes his conquest. But once his task is done, Angus claims the soul he was promised, transforming the Scorpion King into a monster and returning his army into the underworld. This is essentially the backstory for a character who appears in The Mummy Returns primarily as a threat, someone the heroes must race against, time to stop, and who, by the climax, has been transformed into a massive CGI scorpion human hybrid creature that Rick must slay using the spear of or Isis. Osiris. Johnson's actual screen time as a fully human Scorpion King is limited. The prolonged sequence, the climatic battle, but he makes every moment count, projecting exactly the combination of martial ferocity and tragic grandeur that the character requires. The visual effects representing Johnson in his fully monstrous Scorpion King from were widely criticized upon the film's release and have remained a frequent subject of discussion in the years since. The VFX team at the Industrial Light and Magic faced a specific and unusual challenge. Johnson's professional wrestling commitment meant that detailed facial scan required for the photorealistic CGI representation were extremely limited, resulting in a digital representation of his face that fell into what critics described as the uncanny valley, wrong in a way that was difficult to precisely articulate but impossible to ignore. The monster was impressive as a mechanical and conceptual achievement. The face was the problem. This giveaways aside, the sequence remains one of the film's most spectacular set pieces. Career legacy, the beginning of everything. The Scorpion King proved to be the beginning of one of the most extraordinary career trajectories in Hollywood history. Johnson's appearance in The Mummy Returns generated enough audience interest that Universal Pictures immediately commissioned a prequel film built entirely around his character, released in 2002 under the title The Scorpion King. The film grossed over $165 million on a budget of approximately $60 million, proving that Johnson could open a movie on his own star power. The rest, as this is history. Johnson went on to become, at various points in the 2010 and early 2020s, the highest paid actor in Hollywood, headlining the Fast and Furious franchise, the Jumanji reboots, and numerous other blockbuster productions. He received the Teen Choice Award for the Choice Movie Villain for his Scorpion King role in 2001. And while the Stinker Bad Movie Award also presented him with their Worst Supporting Actor designation, the trajectory of his subsequent career has rendered that latter honor somewhat ironic. The Mummy Return was the door through which one of the cinema's biggest modern stars walked, and the film's place in history is partly secured by that single casting decision. Alan Armstrong as Baltus Hafiz, the human villain. Background and career. Alan Armstrong was born on July 17, 1946, in Anfield Plain, County Durham, England. He trained at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art (LAMDA) and built one of the most distinguished careers in British theatre, television, and film. His screen work includes numerous productions for the BBC and the roles in films such as Get Carter 1971, White Hunter Blackheart 1990, and Braveheart 1995. He is one of the Britain's most respected character actors, a performer whose face is familiar to generation of audiences even if his name is not always front of mind. In The Mummy Returns, Armstrong plays Baltus Hafiz, the curator of the British Museum who secretly leads the cult of Imhotep. The character is a human architecture of the film's central catastrophe. It is Hafiz who orchestrated the theft of the Book of the Dead, the destruction of Imhotep, and the entire scheme to use the ancient priest to defeat the Scorpion King and claims command of Anubis' army for his blood. He is a true believer rather than a mere opportunist, which makes him more interesting and more dangerous than a standard movie henchman. Armstrong plays Hafiz with a controlled intensity that makes the character simultaneously respectable and terrifying. He is educated, articulate, and utterly serious about his supernatural mission. And it is precisely this unnerving sincerity that makes him effective. His death at the hands of Anubis' army in the pyramid, caught in the crossfire of his own skin, is a fitting end for a man whose ambition always outstripped his understanding of the forces he was attempting to manipulate. Armstrong's presence in the film adds a layer of British theatrical gravitas that elevate the ensemble considerably. Advil Akinyoe Agbej as Lokna, the fearsome enforcer. Background career. Advil Akinyoe Agbej was born on August 20, 1967 in Illiston, London to Nigerian Yoruba parents. He has spoken movingly in the interviews about profoundly difficult childhood that involved fostering and significant hardship, experiences that informed his later creative work. He studied law at King's College London before turning to modeling and acting. His imposing physical presence, he stands over 6 feet tall and possesses an extraordinary physique, combined with genuine acting talent, made him a natural candidate for the role of Lokna. Lokna serves as the cult's primary enforcer in The Mummy Returns, the man who keeps Alex under control during the desert march, who eliminates obstacles to the cult's mission with professional efficiency, and who ultimately meets his end at the hands of Ardeth Bey in a genuinely tense confrontation near the oasis. He is, in many ways, the film's most purely dangerous human character. Hafiz may be the architect and Imhotep the supernatural force, but Lokna is the one who makes people afraid in the immediate and physical present. Akinyoe Agbej plays the character with a contained ferocity that never crosses into cartoonish villainy. His scenes with Freddy Boath, in which the captured Alex alternately tests Lokna's patience and earns a grudging form of professional respect, are among the film's most psychologically interesting exchanges. The relationship between captor and the captive develops its own strange logic. Lokna is not cruel for cruelty's sake, and Alex is not helpless. And the performances of both actors make this dynamic genuinely compelling. Following The Mummy Returns, Akinyoe Egbed went on to a significant television prominence with his role as Mr. Eko in the hit series Lost, and has contributed to work in both film and television. Shaun Parkes as Easy Buttons, comic relief with wings. Shaun Parkes was born in London and built his career primarily in British film and television. Before his appearance in The Mummy Returns, he plays Easy Buttons, Rick O'Connell's old friend and partner, a dirigible pilot whose aircraft serves as the hero's primary means of transportation across South Africa and eventually into the oasis of Ahmsihar. The character is new to the franchise. He does not appear in the original film, but his introduction is handled with characteristic efficiency, establishing the friendship between him and Rick through a flashback joke involving a gunshot wound and a belly dancer. Parkes plays Izzy with infectious warmth and a beautifully calibrated sense of self preservation that plays a comic counterpoint to Rick's more reckless heroism. Izzy's persistent complaints about being involved in supernatural disaster he wants no part of, combined with his ultimate willingness to return with his repaired dirigible to rescue the O'Connells in the film's final moments, trace a satisfying comic arc. He is the ordinary person thrown into extraordinary circumstances, and Parks ground the character in recognizable humanity. The film's final shot of Izzy and the dirigible arriving like a rescue from Steamcon Dream is one of the most satisfying movements in the film. The supporting cast, essential threads in a grand tapestry. Aaron Ipel as Pharaoh Seti I. Aaron Ipel is an Israeli actor who plays the ancient Pharaoh Seti I in the film's flashback sequence. Seti I is the ruler whom Imhotep murdered thousands of the years ago. After discovering that his high priest had fallen in love with royal mistress Anuximamon, Ipel brings commanding dignity to the role. Seti I is not a simple victim, but a king whose trust and authority were catastrophically betrayed. The actor had previously played the same character in 1999 original, providing visual continuity across the franchise. His work in the flashback sequences helps ground the supernatural element of the present day story in a concrete historical tragedy. Bruce Bryan as Red Wiltis. British actor Bruce Bryan plays Red Willis as a thief contracted by the clerk to obtain the bracelet of Anubis. The character serves primarily as a plot device in the film's opening act, a minor criminal whose involvement with the forces far beyond his comprehension leads to his inevitable doom. Brian plays the character with appropriately vener energy, and the film uses him effectively as an early demonstration of the supernatural stakes the heroes will eventually be forced to confront. Joy Dixon as Jacques Clement. Joy Dixon plays Jacques Clement, another thief working with the clerk in the film's opening sequence. Dixon is a British actor with extensive stage and television credits, and he brings professional competence to a role that exists primarily to establish the clerk's operational reach and willingness to work with criminal elements. His character's fate, like that of most minor criminals who cross paths with resurrected mummies, is not a pleasant one. Tom Fisher as Jacob Spivey. Tom Fisher rounds out the trio of hired thieves with his portrayal of Jacob Spivey. Fisher, another accomplished British character actor, brings individuality to the character who might easily have blended into the background, finding small moments of distinguish Spivey from his criminal associates. Quill Roberts as Sheffield. Quill Roberts plays Sheffield, a member of the cult, who appears in the several of the film's early scenes. The role is relatively small but contributes to the sense of the cult as a functioning organization with multiple capable members rather than a collection of interchangeable thugs. Donna Eyre as Sugar. British television personality. Donna Eyre has a cameo appearance as a showgirl, one of the several brief appearances by recognizable British media figures that give the film a slightly worried, self aware quality consistent with its tone. Trevor Lowell as Mountain of Flesh. Trevor Lowell plays the character memorably credited as Mountain of Flesh, a towering physical presence whose appear as one of the film's early antagonists. The casting of Lowell in this role reflects the film's commitment to using physicality as character shorthand, establishing threat through scale before any action sequence confirms it. The creative team behind the cast, director and producers. Stephen Sommers, writer and director. Stephen Sommers served as both writer and director on The Mummy Returns, reprising the dual role he had held on the 1999 original. Born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1962, Sommers had previously directed The Jungle Book 1994 and The Deep Rising 1998 before helming The Mummy. His approach to the material was that of a filmmaker who genuinely loved the adventure serials and creature features of classic Hollywood. He wanted to make movies that were fun, that moved, that blended comedy and genuine horror without apologizing for either. Somer's relationship with his cast was by all accounts warm and collaborative. He was eager to reunite the original ensemble and worked hard to ensure that the script gave each returning actor something new and meaningful to do rather than simply repeating what had worked in the first film. His decision to expand Evelyn from a supporting character into a fully realized warrior, to give Jonathan his moment of unexpected heroism, to develop Ardeth based connection to Rick's backstory, and to introduce Scorpion King as both a historical figure and a present day threat, all reflect a writer director thinking carefully about what an ensemble needs to grow across sequence. The decision to cast Dwayne Johnson, an athlete with no film credit, was perhaps Sommer's most audacious choice, and his confidence in Johnson's charisma and physical presence proved entirely justified. The CGI problems with Jonasson's digital Scorpion King from were not the fault of the casting decision, but of technical limitation in what was then state of art visual effect work. Sommer has always been a director who pushes visual effect technology to its limit, and sometimes those limits push back. Producers Sean Daniel and James Jack. The film was produced by Sean Daniel and James Jack, the same producing team responsible for the original 1999 Mummy. Their relationship with the material and the cast predated the first film's production, and their institutional knowledge of what had worked and what could be improved was invaluable in shaping the sequel. It was Jack who initially attempted to secure bigger star names for the lead role in the 1999 original before recognizing Brendan Fraser exactly the right combination of charisma, physicality, and market appeal, a recognition that shaped the entire franchise. The cast's cultural impact, what the Mummy Returns meant. A film that made stars and remade careers. The Mummy Return occupies a unique position in the cultural landscape of the early 2000s. It was not most critically acclaimed film of its year. Its Rotten Tomatoes score of 46% and its Metacritic rating of 48 out of 100 categorize it firmly as mixed reviewed blockbuster. But its audience reception was enthusiastic, as reflected in its cinema score grade of A minus and its extraordinary box office performance. And its casting legacy has proven remarkably durable. Consider what The Mummy Return did for the careers of its principal cast members in the context of 2001. For Brendan Fraser, it confirmed him as one of the most bankable action comedy leads in Hollywood, building on the original Mummy's success and adding a layer of a family man emotional depth to the Rick O'Connell character that made him more relatable rather than less exciting. For Rachel Weisz, it demonstrated that critical success of the first film's Evelyn Carnahan had translated into genuine audiences' affection, and it gave her the expanded action sequences and emotional range that would sustain her career momentum into her Academy Award winning years. For Dwayne Johnson, The Mummy Return was simply the beginning of everything. His brief appearance as the Scorpion King did what brief appearances rarely do. It generated sufficient audience excitement to warrant an entire stand-alone film built around the character, and the success of the Scorpion King proved that Johnson could carry a movie of his own. From that platform, he built the most commercially successful career in contemporary Hollywood. For Patricia Velasquez, the expanded role of Mila Kunis Anaxunamun represented a rare opportunity for a Latina actress to play a complex villain in major Hollywood production. Her performance received considerable critical recognition. Many reviewers singled her out as the film's most impressive individual contribution, and she subsequently worked to expand her profile both within the entertainment industry and as an advocate for LGBTQ rights and philanthropy. The ensemble as a template. The Mummy Returns also represent a particularly successful example of what might be called family ensemble blockbuster storytelling, a model in which the central action is driven not by a lone hero or even a romantic couple, but by an extended family unit that includes parents, child, siblings, and loyal friends. The O'Connell family at the center of the Mummy Returns. Rick, Evelyn, and Alex is surrounded by Jonathan, Ardeth Bay, and Izzy in a way that distributes the narrative weight across multiple characters and relationships. This approach was no unique to the Mummy franchise. The Indiana Jones film had pioneered the sum of these dynamics, but The Mummy Returns executed it with particular skills, giving each ensemble member a function, a character arc, and at least one moment that was genuinely theirs. In the years since 2001, the ensemble blockbuster has become increasingly dominant. The Marvel Cinematic Universe's approach to multi character storytelling owes something, however, indirectly to the success of the films like The Mummy Returns in a demonstrating that audiences would embrace a large cast of distinct, well drawn characters rather than demanding the focus remains on a single protagonist. The family's approach to building an adventuring family unit that audiences genuinely cared about was a significant part of what made it so successful with audiences, even when critics were less enthusiastic. Production and filming, how the cast brought it all together. Locations and physical challenges. Principal photography for The Mummy Returns was extensive and demanding, taking the cast and crew to multiple countries and requiring sustained physical performances. Across months of production, filming began in the desert of Morocco, specifically in the towns of Yufou and Ouarzazate location that had also served for the original 1999 film and whose vast ancient landscape provided the visual grandeur the sequel demanded. Additional second unit photography was conducted in Jordan, including the extraordinary carved sandstone gods of Petra, one of the ancient world's most spectacular surviving architectural achievements. From the desert, production moved to Shepperton Studio in Surrey, England, where enormous set representing the ancient pyramid and temples of Fehr were constructed and where the elaborate interior sequences were filmed. The production also made use of various London locations, including the British Museum, whose grand galleries provided a spectacular backdrop for the film's dramatic early museum battle sequence and Tower Bridge. The combination of authentic desert location, exotic historical sites, and elaborate studio construction gave the film a visual scale and geographic ambition that matched its narrative ambition. For the cast, these diverse shooting locations presented physical and logistical challenges that required adaptability and endurance. Desert temperatures in Morocco could be extreme. Studio work at Shepperton, while control demanded its own kind of sustained concentration. Under the artificial lighting, the martial art training that Rachel Weisz and Patricia Velasquez had undertaken was put to the test across multiple consecutive shooting days in period costumes that were rarely designed with comfort as a priority. The chemistry of the ensemble. One of the most frequently noted qualities of The Mummy Return is the ease and warmth of the relationship between its principal cast members. The chemistry between Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz as Rick and Evelyn had been established in the first film and was now deepened by the addition of a child, Freddy Boath's Alex, whose presence as their son required both actors to modulate their performances to accommodate the parental dimension for their characters. The scenes between the three of them feel genuinely like a family, with all the affectionate conflict, unconditional loyalty, and shared private language that implies. Jonathan, John Hannah's Jonathan functions as the family's extended member, and Hannah's comic timing serves as an essential lubricant in the ensemble's collective machine. His ability to diffuse tension with precisely calibrated humor allows the other actors to commit to emotional sincerity in ways that might otherwise be unable to sustain across 130 minutes of adventure. Oded Fehr's Ardeth's Bay provides gravitas and external perspective. The character, whose seriousness about the supernatural stakes ground the humor in genuine peril. By multiple accounts from interviews and production materials. The atmosphere on set was notably positive, with cast members supporting each other's performances and Somers maintaining an environment in which experimentation and play were encouraged within the framework of the script's demand. This sense of collective investment in the material is visible on screen. The Mummy Return feels like a film made by people who were genuinely having a good time, and that enjoyment is contagious. Visual effects and actor collaboration. The visual effects work on The Mummy Return, led by John Barton at Industrial Light and Magic, was among the most ambitious undertaken for a Hollywood film up to that point. The team sought to surpass the already impressive CGI work of the original, particularly the iconic shots for Imhotep's face forming in a collapsing wall of sand, and to integrate the digital elements was the live action performances more seamlessly than had been possible in 1999. For Arnold Vosloo, the integration presented particular challenges. As Imhotep, he was frequently required to react to CGI creature in environment that would only be added in post-production, requiring him to perform against markers and empty spaces while imagining what would eventually be visible to audience. This demands a specific discipline that combines technical precision, positioning correctly relative to marks, with imaginative freedom, believing in something that is not there yet. And Vosloo navigated these demands across months of photography with consistent skill. The criticism leveled at the Scorpion King's CGI, specifically the digital representation of Dwayne Johnson's face, which lacked the accuracy achievable with more complete facial scan data, reflected a real technical limitation rather than any failure of creative intent. The visual effects teamwork worked with what they had, and Johnson's wrestling commitment prevented the extensive scanning session that would have been necessary for more convincing results. The sequence remains spectacular as an action set piece. Only the face gives pause. Legacy and retrospective assessment 25 years later. Critical reassessment. The Mummy Returns received mixed reviews upon its 2001 release. Roger Ebert, who had awarded the original film 3 stars, reduced his rating to 2 for the sequel, arguing that the film had abandoned its characters in favor of special effects and action sequences. James Berardinelli called it hollow, lightweight entertainment. Joy Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal dismissed it as having all of the clang but none of the swank of the previous version. More positive responses came from Kent Stern of Los Angeles Times, who praised its constant plot turns, cheeky sensibility, and omnipresent action sequences, and Todd McCarthy of Variety, who celebrated the visual inventiveness of its final act. In the years since its release, however, The Mummy Returns has undergone a significant and broadly recognized reassessment. The film is now widely celebrated as a quintessential entry in the blockbuster adventure genre of its era, a film that succeeded precisely because of, rather than despite, its earnest commitment to entertainment. The performances of Fraser, Hannah, Vosloo, and Velasquez are now recognized as a part of what makes the film distinctive. This is not a movie populated by interchangeable action heroes and forgettable villains, but one whose characters have genuine personality, warmth, and moral weight. The film's 25th anniversary in 2026 was marked by a theatrical re release that brought it back to cinema across the United States, where it performed modestly but enthusiastically with nostalgic audiences. The re release was accompanied by renewed critical and cultural discussion about the film's legacy, with many writers specifically noting the quality of the ensemble casting as one of the key factors in its enduring appeal. The franchise legacy. The Mummy Returns occupies a central position in the legacy of the Mummy franchise. It was the commercial peak of the Stephen Sommers series, more successful at box office than either the 1999 original or the 2008 sequel, and the film that launched the Scorpion King spin-off series built around Dwayne Johnson's character. The 2008 sequel, The Mummy: Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, brought back Fraser and Hannah, but lost Weisz, who was replaced by Mario Bello, and was widely considered an inferior film both critically and commercially. Universal Pictures' 2017 attempt to reboot the franchise with Tom Cruise in the lead role was a significant commercial and critical failure that effectively ended plans for a shared dark universe of interconnected monster films. This failure, in retrospect, only enhanced the reputation of the Sommers trilogy, and particularly The Mummy Returns, as examples of how to do this kind of material well with charm, commitment, an excellent cast, and the fundamental understanding that audiences invest in characters first and spectacle second. As of 2026, a fourth film in the original series is in development with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, both confirmed to return as Rick and Evelyn O'Connell. The film was reportedly ignored the events of the third installment, effectively functioning as a direct sequel to The Mummy Returns. The announcement was met with a widespread excitement, confirming the enduring affection audiences hold for the characters and cast members who brought them to life. What made this cast exceptional? Looking back across 25 years, what made the cast of The Mummy Returns exceptional was not any individual performance, however strong, and there were several strong performances, but the collective chemistry and commitment of the ensemble as a whole. Blockbuster films have always required competent casting, but The Mummy Returns benefited from something rarer and more variable. A cast that genuinely seemed to be having fun with each other and with the material, whose enjoyment was infectious and who collectively believed that the story worth telling was worth telling well. Brendan Fraser's Rick O'Connell works because Fraser understands that the character's best quality is his refusal to take himself seriously while taking his family absolutely seriously. Rachel Weisz Evelyn works because Weisz brings the full resources of a serious actress to a character that a lesser performer might have treated as merely decorative. John Hannah's Jonathan works because Hannah finds genuine humanity beneath the comedy. Arnold Vosloo's Imhotep works because Vosloo commits to the tragedy of the character without ironizing it. Patricia Velasquez's Enoxunamon works because Velasquez finds the psychology beneath the villainy. And Divine Johnson's Scorpion King works because Johnson is simply irresistibly himself. The Mummy Returns is a film that deserves to be appreciated, not merely as a piece of commercial spectacle, though it is certainly that, and an exceptionally well made one, but as an example of expert ensemble casting in service of a story that knew what it wanted to be and committed to it completely. Every member of the cast, from the lead to the most minor supporting players, brings something genuine to the material. That collective generosity of performance is rare in any era of filmmaking, and it is what separates The Mummy Returns from the many summer blockbusters that have tried to replicate its formula without capturing its spirit. Conclusion. The cast that made a classic. The Mummy Returns 2001 was a film that could have been merely a sequel, a cash grab continuation of a successful franchise, populated with returning faces going through similar motions. Instead, it became something genuinely memorable, a film in which every casting decision felt purposeful, every character felt alive, and the ensemble as whole created something greater than the sum of its individual performances. Stephen Sommers assembled a cast that included a leading man of extraordinary physical and comedic gifts in Brendan Fraser, a leading lady of genuine intelligence, firepower, and newly revealed warrior capabilities in Rachel Weisz, a comic relief sibling whose warmth and timing were always in service of the emotional truth in John Hannah, a villain of tragic grandeur in Arnold Vosloo, a warrior of noble severity in Oded Fehr, a secondary villain of smoldering complexity in Patricia Velasquez, a child actor of surprising depth and defiant wit in Freddy Boath, a scene-stealing character actor of meancing subtlety in Edvale Akinioe Egbates, a likable everyman in Shaun Parkes, a commanding theatrical villain in Alan Armstrong, and the most consequentially of all, a professional wrestler who would become one of the biggest movie stars in the history in Dwayne Johnson. Each of these casting decisions was right. Each of these performances delivered, and together they created a film that remains, a quarter century after its initial release, one of the most purely enjoyable ensemble adventure films in the history of blockbuster cinema. The Mummy returns in 2001, and the cast that welcomed him back deserves every bit of the acclaim and affection they have received in years since. From the first frame of Barry Prologue, in which Dwayne Johnson surveys the ancient world from the vantage point of a warrior who has made a pact with a god, to the final shot of O'Connell family escaping into the sunset in Izzy's repaired dirigible. The Mummy Returns is a film in motion, constantly, joyfully in motion. Its cast moves with it, carrying the audience through every twist and explosion and moment of genuine feeling with the ease of performers who trust both the material and each other. The trust is the invisible element that makes great ensemble film great. The Mummy Returns had it in abundance, and that is why 25 years later we are still talking about it. The Mummy Returns 2001, an epic sequel in the sands of adventure, action, and CGI innovation. The Mummy Returns, the 2001 sequel to Stephen Sommers' hugely successful 1999 revival of the classic monster franchise, stands as a landmark in early 2000s blockbuster filmmaking. Directed and written by Sommers, it reunites much of the original cast, including Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, Arnold, Vosloo, Oded Fehr, Patricia Velasquez, while introducing Divine, The Rock, Johnson in his feature film debut. With a budget of approximately $98 million, the film grossed over $436 million worldwide, cementing its status as a commercial triumph and the highest grossing entry in the series at that time. This video delves deeply into the specified aspects: production, development, and pre production, filming, post production, music, release, theatrical and home media, and reception, box office, and critical response, drawing primarily from established production detail to explore how the film was crafted, launched, and received, while aiming for substantial length through detailed analysis, historical context, and elaboration on the filmmaking craft. Their focus remained tightly on these production to reception element: production, development, and pre-production. The path to The Mummy Returns began almost immediately after the first film breakout success. The Mummy 1999 had surprised studio and audiences alike by blending horror, adventure, comedy, and romance into a crowd pleasing spectacle that grossed over $400 million on a more modest budget. Universal Pictures wasted little time greenlighting a sequel. Writer director Stephen Sommers was approached right after the opening weekend of the original and began conceptualizing ideas within a day. Sommer had anticipated a follow up during the making of the first film. His vision was ambitious. He wanted to scale everything up: large action sequences, more elaborate special effects, and deeper character arc, while avoiding a simple rehash of the Mummy Awakens and Causes Chaos formula. The goal was to outdo the predecessors in scope and spectacle. He set the story in 1933, exactly 7 years after the events of the first film. This time, jump allowed Rick O'Connell, Fraser, and Evelyn Witz to evolve into a married couple with a young son, Alex. Freddy Boath. The family dynamic added emotional stakes and opportunities for humor, with Alex inheriting adventurous traits from both parents. Pre-production involved weaving multiple timelines: the ancient prologue featuring the Scorpion King, Johnson, the resurrection of Imhotep, Vosloo, and modern 1930s adventure of the O'Connells. Sommer drew on enduring public fascination with ancient Egypt, expanding lore around artifacts like the bracelet of Anubis, the Book of the Dead, and connection to gods like Anubis. The narrative introduced the Scorpion King as a new legendary figure whose soul, packed with Anubis, created high stakes consequences for the present day character. Casting was a priority. Sommer prioritized reuniting the core ensemble: Fraser, Woods, Hannah, Vosloo, Fehr, Velasquez returned enthusiastically, drawn to the script's mix of genre. Woods and Velasquez underwent rigorous training in ancient Japanese martial art to handle the more physically intense fight choreography. Particularly, Evelyn's duel with Alex Suleiman, young Freddy Boath was cast as Alex after auditioning. He reportedly chose this over an opportunity related to the emerging Harry Potter franchise. The standout new addition was Dwayne Johnson as Scorpion King, at the time primarily known from WWE. Johnson was making his acting debut. Sommer saw raw charisma and physical presence that fit the mythic warrior archetype. Johnson committed fully, enduring extensive makeup and prosthetics of the role. Pre-production also involves designing the film's ambitious visual effect pipeline, partnering with Industrial Light and Magic (ILM) to push CGI boundaries beyond the first film. Development emphasized practical set alongside digital enhancement. Production designer Alan Cameron and his team planned massive builds for pyramids, temples, and London locals. The screenplay balanced spectacle with character moments, Rick's reluctant heroism, Evelyn's scholarly bravery, and reincarnation revelation as Nefertari, and Jonathan's comic relief, while ramping up the cult antagonists led by Burt's Hafiz, Alan Armstrong. Pre-production challenges included coordinating international location, securing permissions, and preparing for the demanding stunt and effect work. Budget allocation favored visual effect and action, reflecting Sommer's desire for a bigger, more immersive adventure. By the time cameras rolled, the project had evolved into a high-octane family adventure with horror elements poised to capitalize on the original momentum. To fully appreciate the development phase, consider the broader industry landscape in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Post Titanic and amid the rise of CGI driven blockbusters like The Matrix 1999 and Gladiator 2000, studios sought franchises with global appeal. Sommer's approach mirrored this, blending practical adventure inspired by classic Indiana Jones style serial with cutting edge digital effects. The decision to introduce a child character added family audience potential, broadening market reach. Script iteration focused on tightening the multi timeline structure so the ancient events directly impacted the 1933 plot, creating a sense of epic destiny. Pre-visualization for key sequences, especially battles involving Anubis' army and the Scorpion King, began early to estimate cost and technical needs. The meticulous planning helped justify the near $100 million budget, significantly higher than the first films. Character backstories were deepened in pre-production. Evelyn's link to Nefertiti provided with dual role with emotional payoff. Imhotep's arc explored redemption and tragedy more than pure villainy. The cult's motivation seeking control of Anubis' army added layers of conspiracy and betrayal. Casting sessions emphasized chemistry. The returning actors' report from the first film speed up rehearsals. Johnson's involvement generated buzz, signaling the film's blockbuster ambition. Overall, the development transformed a simple sequel into a myth building exercise that laid groundwork for spin off like The Scorpion King. Filming. Principal photography for The Mummy Returns was an international endeavor, blending harsh desert conditions with controlled studio work. Filming kicked off in the desert of Morocco, leveraging locations familiar from the first film. Key sites including Erfurt or Azazet, chosen for the authentic sandy vista and ancient feeling architecture that stood in for Egyptian setting. Second unit work extended to Jordan, capturing dramatic gorges at Petra for exterior shots that added grandeur to the oases and pyramid sequences. In Morocco, the crew faced typical challenges of desert production: extreme heat, sandstorms, and logistical issues transporting equipment and cast. Despite this, the team adapted swiftly. Scenes involving the O'Connell's family adventure, pursuits, and battles with cult members and Paigimi mummies were shot with a mix of practical stunt and placeholder for later CGI. Brendan Fraser performed many of his action sequences, maintaining the physicality that defined Rick O'Connell. Rachel Weisz's fight training paid off in choreographed combat scenes requiring precision and intensity. Production then relocated to Shepperton Studios in England for interior and large-scale set pieces. Massive practical sets recreated ancient pyramid temples and the golden pyramid of the Scorpion King. These allowed for intricate lighting, practical effects, explosion, collapsing structures, and actor performances in tangible environment before digital augmentation. London filming utilized real locations like the British Museum and Tower Bridge, grounding the contemporary 1930s segment in recognizable setting and contrasting the exotic Egyptian elements. Weather in England posed occasional delays, but the crew's experience from the first film helped mitigate issues. Director of photography Adrian Biddle captured sweeping vista and dynamic action with a style that emphasized movement and scale. Stunt coordinators orchestrated complex chases, dirigible sequences, and battles. The Pygmy Mummy Attack, for instance, combined practical performers in costume with planned digital enhancement. Filming also highlighted collaborative performances. John Hannah's Jonathan provided levity amid tension, while Oded Fehr's Ardeth Bay anchored the Magi warrior element. Arnold Vosloo acted against invisible opponent and environment for Imhotep's CGI heavy scenes. relying on imagination and reference markers. Dwayne Johnson's Scorpion King prologue required extensive practical makeup before his full CGI transformation, testing endurance but showcasing his commitment. The shoot emphasized safety and efficiency given the scale, wirework, vehicle stunt, and crowd scenes with extras portraying armies and cultists. Somers directed with a focus on capturing energy and humor in real time, often encouraged improvisation with structured action. Principal photography wrapped after several months of intensive work, setting the stage for heavy post production effects. The on location authenticity combined with studio control gave the film its distinctive blend of grounded adventure and fantastical scope. Expanding on film's technique, multiple cameras were often used for action to capture different angles efficiently. Steadicam and crane shot enhanced the sense of pursuit and epic scale, particularly in desert chases and dirigible crash. Practical effects like fire, wind machine for sand, and mechanical rigs for collapsing sets added realism that CGI would later enhance rather than replace entirely. The production international nature required careful coordination of crew, language barrier with local Moroccan sport, and cultural sensitivities at historic sites like Petra. These efforts contributed to the film's immersive world building, making audiences feel transported across time and continents. Post production. Post production on The Mummy Returns was dominated by visual effect work primarily at Industrial Light Magic (ILM) under supervisor John Bratton. The team aimed to surpass the original film's effect, leveraging advances in CGI for more fluid, integrated creature and environments. Imhotep's appearances, the Scorpion King's transformation, Anubis' jackal army, pygmy mummies, and the massive final battle sequence required thousands of man hours. Motion capture and detailed camera tracking ensured seamless blending of live action players with digital elements. Britain emphasized organic realism, creature moving with believable weight and interaction. Arnold Vosloo's performance capture for Imhotep involved green screen work, where he created tennis ball and stands in, later replaced by digital extension. The film pushed integration further than its predecessor, with characters interacting more dynamically with CGI foes. A notable challenge was Scorpion King. Limited reference from Johnson due to his WWE schedule hindered accurate facial modeling, resulting in an early CGI variant often cited for uncanny valley issues, awkward expressions, and lessly convincing integration. Despite these, other elements like the fluid sand effect, army multitudes, and pyramid environments showcased ILM's growing prowess in the early 2000s CGI era. Editor Bob Dusky and Kelly Matsumoto shaped the fast-paced narrative, tightening action while preserving character beat. Sound design and mixing amplified the spectacle. Booming scores, creature roars, crumbling structure, and epic battles. The film's 129-minute runtime was honored through the test screening to balance spectacle with pacing, color grading, and digital intermediates, enhanced the Golden Desert and Shadowy Tomb. Post production wrapped in time for a May 2001 release, reflecting the efficient studio coordination. In broader context, The Mummy Returns exemplified the transition to heavy CGI reliance in adventure film. While practical effects anchored performances, digital tools enabled impossible shots. For example, massive armies transforming creatures. Criticism of certain effects highlighted growing pain in technology, but success in Imhotep and environmental work influenced later blockbusters. The post process elevated the film's ambition, turning a solid script into a visual feast, elaborated with technical insights and industry positioning. Music. Alan Silvestri composed the score, delivering a fresh, thunderous orchestral work, distinct from Jerry Goldsmith's theme in original, performed by the Sinfonia of London and orchestrated by William Rose. The music emphasized epic adventure, sweeping desert vistas, tense horror, and heroic motifs. The soundtrack album, released May 1, 2001 by Decca Records, runs about 73 minutes and captured the film's high energy spirit. Silvestri's style, bold brass, driving percussions, and lyrical string perfectly suited the action set pieces, family moments, and ancient mysticism. Tracks underscore chases, battles, and emotional reunion without overshadowing dialogue. A version of Lives Forever May Not Be Long Enough appears trying into romantic and fateful themes. A 2018 Intrada Records 2 CD expansion offered fans deeper access to cues and alternates. The score received positive notice for its cinematic scope, enhancing the film's club adventure feel. It stands as a memorable component that unifies the multi-genre tone, expanded with discussion of compositional approach, orchestration, and thematic integration. Theatrical release. The Mummy Returns premiered in theater on May 4, 2001, distributed by Universal Pictures. Marketing highlighted the returning cast, new star power of The Rock, massive action, and improved effects. Trailers emphasized non-stop spectacle, family adventure, and horror comedy. Balance. It opened strongly amid 2001's competitive summer slate. The wide release capitalized on the original's fanbase and general audience's appetite for escapist blockbuster. International rollout followed, benefiting from exotic locations appeal. A 25th anniversary re-release occurred on March 27, 2026, demonstrating lasting popularity. Home media. Home video release arrived quickly on October 2, 2001 on VHS and DVD. It shattered records as fastest selling DVD in the US at that time, moving 2 million copies in the first week and briefly surpassing Gladiator. Widescreen and full screen edition captured to different setup. Later format including Blu-ray 2008, UHD, Blu-ray 2017, keeping it accessible. Home media success extended the film's cultural footprint, introducing it to new generations and boosting franchise interest, including video game tie-ins, though poorly received. Reception, box office. The Mummy Returns was a massive commercial hit. It earned $23.4 million on opening Friday and 26.8 million Saturday, setting then records. Then $68.1 million opening weekend was the second highest ever at the time, behind the Lost World Jurassic Park, and the highest for 2001 until later challenger. It had the first spot for 2 weeks. Domestic total reached about $203 million with $233 million internationally for a worldwide gross of $436 million. Some reports cite $435.9 million. Against its budget, this represented strong profitability and made it the seventh highest grossing film of 2001. The re release added modest additional earnings. Success justified spin offs and sequels. Factors included strong word of mouth among families and action fans, effective marketing, and lack of direct competition initially. It outperformed expectations in many markets, proving the franchise's global draw. Critical response. Critical reception was mixed. Rotten Tomatoes scored it 46% based on 141 reviews, average 5.3 out of 10, with consensus noting impressive effects but character secondary to CGI. Metacritic's averaged 48 by 100, mixed or average. Audiences' scores were higher with cinema score A-. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars, down from 3 for the original, criticizing abandonment for characters for effects. Others, like Kat Turan, praised constant action and cheeky sensibility. James Berardinelli found it lightweight but entertaining. Detractors noted over-reliance on spectacle, while supporters lauded non-stop fun and visual goodies. Accolades were limited, with some teen choice and kids' choice nods, plus a stinker win of Johnson. The divide reflected broader debates on CGI era blockbusters, spectacle versus substance. Despite mixed reviews, audiences' enthusiasm drove box office and home video success, solidifying its status as fun, rewatchable adventure. Let's get into few reviews. Review 1. The Mummy Returns, a 2001 movie written and directed by Stephen Sommers as released by Universal Pictures, is a sequel to the 1999 movie The Mummy. It was ultimately a commercial success despite receiving mixed reviews over $435 million in worldwide box office receipts. It ranks as the seventh highest grossing movie of 2001 per the numbers. The Scorpion King, a spin off movie released in 2002 and set 5,000 years in the past, and The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor in 2008 sequel were both influenced by the popularity of the previous two films, leading to what eventually became a distinct Mummy franchise. The Mummy Return was nominated for 19 awards and won 4 of them. Following their appearances in The Mummy Returns, the cast, who was part of this incredible movie, worked on the following projects. Here's a breakdown of where they, from Brendan Fraser to Rachel Weisz, are today. Brendan Fraser. Brendan Fraser most recent project include 2022's The Whale, for which he gained critical acclaim and even the Oscar for Best Actor, portraying Charlie, as well as the television series Professionals and Doom Patrol. Fraser was also set to appear in upcoming film Batgirl as a Garfield Lines Firefly, but it has since been pulled from release by the studio Warner Bros. Discovery. According to the Variety, his other upcoming projects included Brothers, Behind the Curtain of Night, and The Killer of the Flower Moon. Rachel Weisz. Rachel Weisz starred in two films in 2018: The Mercy, where she portrayed Claire Crownhurst, and The Favorite, where she played Lady Sarah. Her most recent role was in Marvel's Black Widow 2022 21, where she portrayed Natasha Romanoff's Scarlett Johansson's mother Melina. Witt's upcoming roles included the film Love Child and Skin App on a Wet Afternoon, as well as the television series Dead Ringers. John Hannah. John Hannah's work on Marvel's Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. arguably garnered him much more fame than many of his previous projects. Hannah has most recently been in Transplant, Lucid, and The Apology, as well as making a short guest appearance on The Last of Us. In addition to a rumored appearance in Dark Glass, his next project include Damage, Miss the Kiss, and Mail Mail. Arnold Vosloo. Arnold Vosloo's most recent acting gigs include his role as Jost van der Bijl in Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan television series, portraying Captain John Langerman in the film Silverstone Siege, and his role as Dean Ludick in the television series Ludick. Vosloo also portrayed Colonel Martin Batch in the film's Condor's Nest, which was released in early 2023. Oded Fehr. Some of Oded Fehr's recent roles included portraying Kareem Frackor in the Block and Trayer television series and a stint as legendary villain Ra's al Ghul in animated series Young Justice. He also made guest appearance in the FBI television universe, FBI, FBI Most Wanted, and FBI International from 2020 to 2022. Fred portrayed Admiral Charles Dance on the television series Star Trek Discovery. His only known upcoming project is the film La Coquina about restaurant whose kitchen values the diversity of cultures. Patricia Velasquez. Actress Patricia Velasquez had a busy year in 2022 because three of her movies were released. She played Maribel in Satanic Hispanic, Soledad in Free Dead or Alive, and Marila Vinskua in Blood Force. Velasquez is set to portray Gabriel in the upcoming movie No Address, which is about a group of homeless people who are trying to survive. And her other upcoming project is a film titled Maya, which is about a young girl with family issues. Freddy Boath. When he appeared in The Mummy Returns, Freddy Boath was only 10 years old. He seems to have stopped acting from 2002 to 2008. He then appeared in The Children, The Bill Doctors, Pillars of Earth, and Normed between 2008 and 2012. Both's final acting role to date was Benji Reed in The House of Anubis, in which he starred in 2013. After earning a Bachelor's of Art from Oxford Brookes University and completing an internship at the Red Brick Road Ad Agency in London, he is currently employed as a marketing and advertising specialist. Alan Armstrong. Alan Armstrong has recently portrayed Chief Inspector Weisz in the television miniseries Year of the Rabbit, has starred as Roger in the film Cordelia, has played Gary Jackson in the television series Sherwood, and had a starring role as Jim in the television series Breeders. His most recent acting credit is recurring role on PBS masterpieces Tom Jones as Squire Western. Advil Akinyoy Agbage. Advil Akinyoy Agbage recently provided the voice of Babatunde of for the podcast series Oliver. Lagos to London appeared as the Hobgoblin in two episodes of the Moomin Valley television series. Played the role of Cradrick in the movie Marlowe and had recurring role in his Dark Material television series from 2017 until 2019, and Kyoe Egbate supplied the voice of Xavier in the animated series Rapunzel Tangled Adventure. His planned projects include the movie Latter Summer and Our Man from Jersey, as well as a guest appearance in the television show King Shaka as the White. Dwayne Johnson. Anyone who does not know who The Rock is has probably been living under one. The combined wrestler, actor, and musician had been busy over the years. In his more recent work, Dwayne Johnson has voiced Crypto in DC League of Super Pet animated film starred as Teeth Adam in DC's Black Adam movies, inspired athletes in the sport documentary television series Player 54, chasing XFL dreams, and voiced his wrestling persona in the video game WWE 2023. According to Deadline, Johnson will co star with iconic actors Chris Evans, Lucy Liu, J.K. Simmons, and Bonnie Hunt in 2023 holiday movie Red One as Callum Drift. He also has a long list of further upcoming projects ranging from films in development, Dr. Savage, Jungle Cruise 2, San Andreas 2, and The King, to film in production, Untitled Red Notice sequel, and Big Trouble in Little China. Review 2. It's incredible what some character will do for just a little bit of trial. They are willing to topple entire governments and cause the apocalypse itself, sometimes serving much more powerful agents of means. The three movies in the Mummy franchise are full of such selfish characters. The Mummy, The Mummy Returns, and The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, all of which are now streaming on Peacock, are loaded with antagonists that will betray, backstab, and kill to get what they want. Love, revenge, power, gold. It doesn't matter. If they want it, they are going to get it. Rick O'Connell, Brendan Fraser, and his merry band are all the stand in their way. We have already extolled the brilliance of Evelyn Carnahan, Rachel Weisz, as well as her brother Jonathan, John Hannah. But now it's time to lust for gold and power over the dark side. Open the book of deep of the dead and pop the bourbon because we are going to rank our favorite villains from the Mummy movies. Roger Wilson, The Mummy, Tomb of Dragon Emperor. Curse his inevitable betrayal. We think that this archaeologist mentor to young Alex Connell, Luke Ford, is Mauritius broody character who knows how to drop a good Bimbridge reference, but he is just a filthy traitor. David Clarder makes us like the guy, though we never trust him as much as Alex does. He is a little fishy, and Alex is an idiot. He loses us completely when he pulls a gun on Rick and Eve, making it clear that he is on the side of General Jiang and the reborn Emperor Han. If he thought that Emperor was going to keep him around as a valued colleague, he was way off. He gets his head cut off when he tries to hitch a ride on the Emperor's chariot. And the most forgettable story of Robert Wilson ends. General Jiang, the mummy, tomb of the dragon emperor. Here's the guy who thought that resurrecting Emperor Han was a good idea. Unsatisfied with the state of his country following World War II, Yang Anthony Wong Chong-san decides to resurrect the ceramic bad guys that have to be stopped at all costs. Idiot Alex does not know it, but Yang is the one who financed the dig, the start, the whole mess. It's all Alex's fault, cheek by jowl, but at least he did not read from the book of death. Yang does not want trial. He wants to bring order out of chaos. He sees the returned Emperor Han as the way to do it. He is somewhat respected or at least tolerated by Han, who lets him ride on his chariot instead of killing him. He also has the fierce love of Colonel Choi, Jesse Mang, his chief lieutenant. Unlike other pair of villainous lovers on the list, Choi refuses to leave Yang's side to save her own life. They perish together. The Scorpion King, The Mummy Returns. The prologue of The Mummy Returns shows how this man rises to power. It provided Divine, The Rock Johnson's, with his first on screen acting role at the same time. He says only one word, and the rest of the prologue is all action and looks. Johnson does it well, and it's an action packed opening. The aim of the most movies' other villains is to resurrect him and then kill him. If they do that, they get control over his unstoppable army. He is more of a plot device than anything else, but his prolonged story remains an interesting cautionary tale. In the movie's climax, he shows up again, and yeah, anyone who has seen this movie will remember the nightmare fuel of Johnson's face, CGI'd onto a giant scorpion. If they have just brought Johnson out in a flash, he would be much more formidable. For we were not consulted on the decision, so we'll just accept it how it is. Mr. Hafiz, the mummy returns. Another archaeological flunky, but a more memorable one than Roger Wilson. Alan Armstrong's Hafiz is one of the leaders with the cocaine Kokamine plan to resurrect Imhotep again, solely because he is the only one tough enough to take on the Scorpion King and control his army. In his head, this somehow leads to Hafiz himself being king of the world or something. Armstrong is fantastic as the character, and though he is not as flashy as some of the movie's other antagonists, we always like watching him. He delivers some classic lines with a wonderful plot flair, including "Then to London we must go." As is the case with all the flunkies, he is unaware that he is flunky. He overestimates his importance to Imhotep, and when he is in trouble towards the end of the movie, he pleads for his master to save him. Imhotep's response is hilarious. Why? He's gotten all he could possibly need from the greedy wang. Time to die, Mr. Hafiz. Emperor Ham, the mummy tomb of the dragon emperor. The titular mummy of the third movie, what are his motives? World domination? Yes. But is there anything else? Not really. His ambition is not dissimilar from the Scorpion King. He wants power and revenge. What puts him ahead on the list is the fact that he is played by Jet Li. That's all. Really, he is a piece of restructuring ceramic for most of the movie. 2. So Jet Li is not even there the entire time. It does not matter. Jet Li gives us what we need. And even though a fight scene with Michelle Yeoh's character is a little underwhelming for our taste, Jet Li does what he can to elevate. The movie mostly asks him to stand there and look intimidating. That's exactly what he does, and an actor of lesser presence would have fared far worse. The effect work on the emperor and his army is also quite good and is easily one of the third movie's highlights. Loknath, the mummy returned. Abel Ankyo Agibage joined the sequel movie as a wicked version of the heroic Ardeth Bay, Oded Fehr. If the good guys get someone that cool, then the bad guys have the one too. He and Bay have a history and they fight it out early in the movie in the O'Connell's mansion. Lokna is a mercenary for hire. He is almost as formidable as Ardeth is. He gets the upper hand in the first fight, pinning Ardeth against a wall. He does not finish him off. He twirls around, whisks his cape back onto his shoulder, and shutter out. It is glorious. He has a lot of scenes with young Alex, Freddy Boath, getting more and more pissed as the movie goes on. He is longing for the movement when he gets to kill Alex, and he does not hesitate when the time comes. Ardeth and Rick get in his way, and he goes for another round with Ardeth. The incomparable Ardeth wins the fight and kills him. No fuss, no muss. He is necessarily muscle for the bad guy, and he's cool as hell. He is also cold as ice, especially when he shoots Ardeth's bird friend. He had to go. Ardeth could not and should not let the death of Aura slip. But the part of us would not have minded if he would switch sides at the end and joined up with the heroes. Imhotep, the mummy, the mummy returns. The big bad for the first two movies is not at the number one. It's not because Arnold Vosloo is not fantastic in the role. He certainly is, and he shines in every first movie, especially. He is out for virginess and power, and his resurrection will bring about the end of the world. Vosloo make every step of his transformation exciting. He is not unsympathetic. This movie prolongs show us that he was buried alive because of a love that could not be denied, and this flame still burns hot when he is resurrected. It's not enough for him to return. He has to bring his lover, Anaxunamon, Patricia Velasquez, back too. Imhotep has a serious bag for trick. He has power over the sand, he can resurrect mummies on command, and he can turn ordinary people into thrall. At one point, he opens his mouth wide and spit out a huge cloud of insects. As long as there are not any cats around, he is a tough customer. So we are invested in the story of Rick and Eve in the first movie and Imhotep in the damn mummy who is constantly in the way. He is frightening, powerful, and has everyone running for their lives. He kidnaps Eve, he lies to Rick, and sometimes we feel like he cannot be stopped. He is back remarkably fast in the sequel, but he means to an end. He's still just as nasty and spiteful as ever. He reincarnated Lover by his spite, and they prove to be a toxic pair of aholes. We love to watch them, but we are happy that he never won the day. Mila Anuksunamon, The Mummy Returns. The filmmaker loved Anuksunamon so much in the prologue of The Mummy that they decided to bring Patricia Velasquez back for The Mummy Returns. Not only that, they gave her a much bigger role. Mila is somehow Anuksunamon comes again. Once Imhotep is back, he helps unite Mila and the true spirit of Anuksunamon. The lovers are reunited, but there's not enough for them. They want to kill the Scorpion King and control his army. If they were in it for love alone, they could have just screwed off into the desert and lived. It was a toss up as to whether Anaxunemon or Imhotep was going to take this spot. Ultimately, we gave Anaxunemon the edge for two specific reasons. The first one is that she kills Eve with a very long knife. Eve comes back, but we are sorry, you do not get to do that. You just don't. The second reason happens in a scene toward the end. Both Imhotep and Rick are holding on a cliff edge, and Anaxunamon proves how shallow her love for Imhotep is. She does not run to save him, she runs away and saves herself. In fairness to her, this is a loaded moment. Imhotep is being selfish because he is calling out for her to save him. Rick, on the other hand, is yelling for Eve to run and save herself. Anaxunamon is one who does that. Eve naturally runs and saves Rick. One couple is selfish, other is selfless. The one look on Imhotep's face and Anaxunamon leaves him behind is priceless. He lets himself fall because he's truly lost everything. There's also the way Velasquez delivered this line to little Alex. Because your parents would not slip poisonous snake into your bed while you were sleeping. That's the stuff, alright.